when did you feel like you actually got into that space of practicing it? How many years did it take for you to finally be like, okay, this pinball machine is going everywhere, ups and downs, like success and ego and fame and losses. When did you start to say, oh, this is all happening outside of me,
Yeah.
but let me start to nurture and tend to this garden inside of me for more peace and inner prosperity, not outer prosperity?
I'm going to be really honest with you. I know I don't look it. I'm 57 years old.
Great, man.
48, 49
Okay.
is when that started.
So
When I was really
8, 9 years
able
ago.
to put into practice some of the spiritual guidance that I had been studying, some of the therapeutic and positive psychology studies that I'd been studying. And for those, and I want to say for those watching at home that might have a problem with spirituality or God or religion, and first of all, spirituality and religion are totally separate things, not totally separate, but they are separate things, then that's fine. Put that aside, and there's a wonderful reservoir of information that you have drawn on all 1,400 of your episodes from the positive psychology movement. And so positive psychology always arrives at the same data points that ancient wisdom from faith traditions arrives at. Goes through a different way, but one you can learn a great deal from following what great teachers, like Jonathan Haidt has the happiness hypothesis, and so many great books on happiness and podcasts on happiness and well-being, and Arthur Brooks and David Brooks and all the Brooks. It's the same wisdom. It's just kind of packaged a little differently.
Sure. Wow. So about 8, 9 years ago is when you kind of started to tend to your inner garden.
Isn't that pathetic?
That's not pathetic.
I should have had it at 33.
Okay, Jesus. Yeah. I think, I wish I could have learned these things a lot sooner as well, but it wasn't really until 2 years ago when I felt a sense of peace in my heart that I never felt.
Wow.
And when I hit 38, I just turned 40.
What happened there?
I only felt peace when I was single. But when I was in relationships, I felt trapped, and I felt a sense of not enoughness and never going to be able to live up to someone's standards and people pleasing and all these things that you mentioned as well, similar things. And I never...
Sounds like a little codependence going on there too.
Yeah, and it was I was afraid because my parents were trapped. And so I grew up watching a model of them not really accepting or loving one another. And I didn't know which night, if it was going to be like peaceful or chaotic. Every night you just didn't know how they were going to be screaming or reacting or cold shoulders. So I just didn't have a healthy model. And I don't blame them. It all developed me in a certain way to be a curious learner of this and try to support others going through the same challenge. It's one of the reasons why I left home at 13, because I was like, get me out of here. It was just very up and down, chaotic at home. My brother was also in prison for 4.5 years when I was 8 till I was 12. So it was just like a lot of sadness, grief, loss, pain within the family dynamic. And I know lots of families go through their own unique family dynamic of dysfunction. So this was just my own perspective. And I just went after a feeling as opposed to being the feeling. I went after wanting something and desiring people and then needing to make sure that it worked out and going all in on it, even when I had to change who I was to try to make them, quote unquote, happy. The partners I chose were never happy with me. They didn't accept me for who I was. And I don't blame them. I chose them for a reason. I needed to learn the lessons. And it wasn't until I became fully peaceful and happy and on a healing journey of who I was and everything about my past, really grieving all the different parts of me. That's when I felt peace. So going back to the first thing you talked about, which was grieving. I did about, 9 months of inner child healing and therapy. And,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to please
go ahead,
pick it up from there. But I just want to say, I think this is super important that you can share with your audience your struggle and to say, here I am not really kind of figuring out how to be at peace in a relationship until my late 30s. I don't have it all figured out. I struggle. I think that's so great that you're willing to share that.
I share on here all the time about all my struggles. I kind of am like the guinea pig of
I love it.
breakdowns. You know, I'm like,
I
here's
love
how I'm suffering and struggling and what I'm, working out with my health, relationships, money, spirituality.
So you talk about the inner child work. Did you do some
yeah,
therapeutic?
for 9 months, I was like, I had a screensaver on my phone of my 5-year-old self. Not from a narcissistic point of view of like, oh, look at me as a kid, but more of like, oh, look how sad I was. And look how much I was suffering and unsure of myself I was, and always asking, why am I even here? What's the point of this? And just getting into trouble a lot. And so having compassion for my 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old self, and putting myself in the mystical situations spiritually where I'm there having a conversation and comforting my 5-year-old self as a 38-year-old adult with the wisdom and experience that I have now.
Yeah.
Those experiences reunited me with a broken memory, a memory of mine that was broken, bruised, and hurt psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. And this allowed me to create harmony and congruency with the parts of myself that I was most ashamed of. This was also the time when I was sexually abused by a man that I didn't know, 5 years old. My second memory is of being sexually abused in a bathroom by a man that I didn't know. And I never grieved that. Like you said, going back to grieving, I never even acknowledged it for 25 years. It wasn't until 10 years ago when I started to open up and talk about that and process it with support. That released a pressure valve within me that had been building up for 25 years, which drove me to excel in athletics, in business, and getting results. I was like, I'm going to prove them wrong. No one's going to hurt me ever again. But by not acknowledging or grieving the pain and the sadness of the 5-year-old, the 9-year-old, the 13-year-old, the 27-year-old, and all these different breakdowns I had, and always going to the next point without grieving the loss, it caused many breakdowns in my life, physically, relationally, financially. When on the outside things looked good, but on the inside it was a 1, 2, or 3.
Wow. That's powerful.
And so 10 years ago, right when I started this show, was a part of that journey of healing and finding people that could share their stories so I could try to learn from them and apply some of these lessons. But 2 years ago specifically is when I went even deeper, because I was really struggling in a previous relationship. And so I did about 6 months of intensive weekly therapy of healing the inner child within myself.
That's great.
And then doing it from the different parts of my childhood from 12 to 18 and 27, and kind of marrying all those memories, creating new meaning from them into where I'm at now. That's what allowed me. There was a moment after about, 6 or 7 months of this therapy practice I was doing.
What was it called?
It's just working with a coach.
Okay.
Yeah, a therapist, yeah. But it was just very intense. I was doing like 7, 8 hour sessions, on Saturdays. I was just like, I need to figure this out. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm sick of pain. I'm sick of the suffering. Tell me what to practice, try, do, whatever you want to do, I'll do it.
Okay, let me
know what
tell
I'm saying?
you. Yeah. Can I tell you a story along those same lines? People are watching are probably like,
when did Lewis turn into Oprah?
So when I was struggling a lot, this was a while back, I went to this therapy retreat center called PCS in Scottsdale. And I did a couple different weeks there and different kinds of sessions and different kinds of work. One of the things they have you do there, not for everyone, but they do inner child work. It's therapy 12 hours a day. You stay off site, but you're in, and it's very intense.
Wow.
They have you on the first day, go to the mall to the Build-A-Bear workshop, and you build your inner child.
Shut up.
So I went and I built my inner child.
That's amazing.
As a bear.
I love this.
And you name it.
That's beautiful.
And you have conversations and you carry it with you the entire week.
That is a beautiful exercise.
The entire week. So it's like kind of embarrassing, like, because I was like walking around.
Yeah, I
with
know.
this.
Here's the thing. A lot of people that are watching or listening, they've heard me talk about this stuff for a while, but I'm always trying to be a Trojan horse. You look at me, I'm this big, jock-looking guy, 6'4", former athlete, all these different things. And I try to draw...
Doofus looking, look
Exactly.
like an IQ of 13, like
It's true, though.
farmhand kind of.
My IQ was pretty low. My EQ is high, but IQ is very low.
I'm kidding.
But the goal has always been to draw people in that want success, that want greatness, that want, money, all these different things, and talk about these things, but also talk about the healing modalities that allow you to feel peaceful and enough when you have the championship, when you have the money, when you have the role at the office. Because, I was great at sports and accomplished a lot, but I'd never felt I loved myself or that I was lovable, kind of like what you talked about. Then I transitioned into making money and building a business, and I built a multi-million-dollar company and all these different things, but I still didn't feel lovable. So I was like, well, how do I get to this place where I can actually accept and love me? And so this process, which sounds similar, but I love the idea of having a physical representation of your inner child. That is a beautiful experience. And I'm assuming you had conversations and did exercises and did some weird things that like, if people were watching, to be like, okay,
and if
you're crazy, man.
And if someone was doing it and
in public
left their inner child like
Oh my
on the
gosh.
couch, or even went to like go get a cup of coffee and left it, the therapist would be like, "What the f- are you doing? You're gonna leave your child there?" Like, and it was this training of like, wow, and when I was a child, I was so vulnerable and I suffered so much trauma and pain. But guess what? I get to re-parent myself.
Man, this is beautiful.
I get to hold my own hand.
Oh my
And I
God.
get to see baby Rain, baby Lewis, and give him the love that he didn't get when his mom took off when he's a year and a half old. And my dysfunctional dad was stuck with this big, weird looking toddler, and I get to be part of that process. And it was really powerful.
This
we did
is
a
beautiful.
lot of really intense stuff.
Here's the thing. When I was 21, if I would have watched this conversation or heard
Yeah.
this, I'd have been like, what a bunch of, what a
Yeah.
bunch of wusses.
Suck
what a
it
bunch
up.
of, don't be such a baby, right?
Yeah.
I said like, whatever, because I was just in more of an ego mindset. And I'd have been like, just tell me how to make money. Just tell me to be happy. Just tell me to I want to be successful.
Yeah.
Just teach me that. Like, touch me those, what are those steps? What are those skills? And I hope people watching or listening, specifically men, if you're watching or listening, that you can just listen and hear this perspective. You don't have to listen to me, listen to you and hear this perspective of, I truly believe that the highest form of currency right now is peace. Because you said you can have lots of money and still be miserable and unhappy. The highest form of currency, I think, is peace. Peace with your relationships, peace with your career choices or the business you have, peace with your health, and peace with yourself. And when we don't have that, it just becomes harder. And so for me, it's figuring out how to stay in congruency and alignment with self and be in a peaceful state. It doesn't mean we're not going to experience stress and challenge and overwhelm and let down and all these things, but doing the best to stay in peace will allow us to feel better, make the people around us feel better, and make better decisions in our lives. So I hope people are listening. I hope the women listening share this with their male friends and know it from two different individuals of different backgrounds. You as the career and, in acting and all these different things that you've done in media, me from sports and business, that it matters to make money, but if you're miserable and you're hurting yourself in that process, then it's just amplifying the pain that you already have. And so this is the work, in my opinion.
Amen.
You don't
Amen.
have to go to Build-A-Bear and make an inner child, physical representation and hold the bear around all day. But I feel like do something that works for you.
Yeah.
Do something that works for you. And for me, doing intensive therapy weekly for months supported me. For you, this 2-week experience worked for you. And it's an ongoing journey of healing from my experience. It doesn't just happen overnight and you're healed. For me, it's an ongoing practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's beautifully said, really. And so important. And I love that currency of peace. Like, if you can gain peace in your inner garden, I like to use that metaphor, and well-being, and feel like I am enough. I've shared this before. Our mutual friend, Justin Baldoni, I talked to him about this, that when I was first starting the therapy process, my therapist was having me say daily affirmations.
Uh-huh.
They gave me a list. Here's a list of them. And it's just, give me a break.
Like,
And
what
it's
were the few things you
just
remember?
like, I'm a good father. I'm worthy of love. The first one on the list is I am enough.
Wow.
And I picked it up and I was like, I am enough. Nope, not doing that. It was so hard for me to look at or think about saying that. And he was like, well, that's the one that you have to say. So I had to hang it on the mirror. Every morning I had to get up and brush my teeth and look in the mirror and go, I am enough. And it's, do you remember Stuart Smalley, that Saturday Night Live character? It's like, I'm good enough. Gosh darn it. And I forget Al Franken played this character, Stuart Smalley. Insert clip. But it's corny, it's schmaltzy, but it really helped me. But it also helped me to see, like, wow, I really don't believe that I am enough.
That's the interesting thing. How do you, because I think when we say a false affirmation that we haven't actually believed yet, sometimes it's like, okay, well, we're lying to ourselves when you don't believe it, and yet you're looking at it and you're saying it over and over again. So I love that practice, but it's like we have our emotional state has to catch up to it and actually learn how to process, grieve, heal, and actually believe it. So how did you build yourself in overcoming the insecurities or the self-doubt in order to actually believe that you were enough, not just say the affirmation every day?
Well, that's a really good point. And I hadn't thought about that, but I agree with you. I think it can be dangerous to kind of say a bunch of affirmations that you don't really believe, like you're going to manifest them, but you don't have
believe it.
That organic, authentic kind of kernel of belief inside your gut. But I think that what it did for me is it's kind of like in the show Kung Fu, which I reference in the book Soul Boom. It's one of my favorite television shows of all time. He's like, when you can snatch the pebble from my hand, then you will be ready to go. And that's a runner through the show. And finally, Kwai Chang Caine is able to snatch the pebble from the hand, and he leaves the Shaolin monastery and goes to the Old West and fights a bunch of racist cowboys. Anyways, another topic. But it's like, when you can snatch the pebble from my hand of really believing I am enough, then you're ready. Then you're really ready. So for me, it was, I would say it and I was not getting the pebble. I recognized, oh, I don't believe that I'm enough. I really don't. And I've got work to do. So it was helpful for me to kind of go like, it was, oh my God. I mean, it was a good, 10 years of me saying I am enough when I didn't believe it, until it started through the work that I was doing to kind of believe it. In the last like 8, 9, 10 years, I really have come to believe that I am enough.
Well, I mean, there's some beauty in this for people watching and listening, that I think there's a lot of people that don't believe they're enough, which for me, my mission is to give people the tools, the inspiration, the expertise, the knowledge, the science, the research from others on how they can start to believe in themselves more. I believe self-doubt is the killer of dreams. I think it holds us back from going after what we want. When we doubt ourselves, we lack the courage, or even worse, when we accomplish the thing and we don't feel enough, it's like, what will make me feel enough? I was accomplishing in sports, you were accomplishing in acting, and you still weren't feeling enough with like the height of your career with that show, right? It was like, okay, why do I still not feel enough? And I believe when we can overcome that insecurity and doubt, that's when we can start to really step into a beautiful way of being. And it's been a process and a journey for me. I'm curious, what do you think it was that allowed you to start to believe that you were enough after all those years of kind of saying it and practicing it and the modalities and the training? Was there one thing that where you're like, okay, now I'm starting to feel it? Like, what was that letting go or skill that you learned that supported it?
That's a great question. And I wish I had kind of like some nugget, but it just was a shift, it was a lot of work. It was like, it's like, you put in the work. You can, use athletics as a metaphor, like you
practice daily.
You practice and you work at it and you fail and you struggle and there's ups and downs. And, it was finding a really good therapist and doing some retreats and doing some reading and working with my wife a lot. I learned a ton from my wife. She's much better at this stuff than I am. The light that we all have, the emotion, the love that we bring, the spirit that we bring to interacting with one another. That's our reality. This body houses us, and we should take care of it and